Lisa adjusted the blanket on her sleeping daughter. The baby slept sweetly and serenely, feeling protected with her mother close by. A child who recently turned 1 year old needs nothing more for happiness, and Lisa just had to provide her little girl protection and give her everything she needed for a happy childhood. Yes, it was a lot of responsibility. When Lisa first learned about her pregnancy, she didn't even consider that parenthood would be such a huge responsibility. Probably because Ryan was there, the father of their child. Of course, they assumed that all the cares and troubles would be divided between the two parents, making it not so hard. Lisa thought Ryan would make a wonderful father. He had promised. It was Ryan who dreamed of a child, who asked for one, who wanted to become a father sooner. Lisa herself would have waited a little longer until they got on their feet and got their own apartment, but her husband assured her that many people live in rented homes and still become parents. "Everything will come with time," he assured her. "Now we're at the best age to become parents, and children are a powerful motivator to achieve something." Ryan spoke inspiringly and convincingly, and Lisa didn't notice how she began to share her husband's point of view. Lisa had a complicated history. Her mother died on the same day Lisa was born, a difficult birth. The girl's upbringing was first handled by her father, but then Sarah appeared in the house. Lisa's father got tired of his lonely life and found it difficult to combine work with caring for a small child. Feelings probably also played a role. Lisa saw that her father was truly in love with Sarah and felt a little jealous. At first, Lisa and her stepmother seemed to have a good, warm relationship. Sarah enjoyed walking with her adopted daughter, dressing her up like a doll. She liked her new role as mother and wife. And then Sarah had her own daughter, little Noelle. Lisa sincerely rejoiced it. It was such happiness to have a little sister. But soon the girl realized that her stepmother, and most hurtfully, her father, now directed all their attention and love to Noelle. Sarah dissolved into her long-awaited motherhood. Lisa now received only short orders and reproaches, reprimands for too noisy behaviour, unwashed dishes, and an uncleaned room. As for Lisa's father, he used to come home from work, greet his eldest daughter with an indifferent glance, and immediately hurried to Noelle's crib. He and Sarah stood there speaking in admiring voices, discussing how the baby spent the day and admiring their miracle. At first, Lisa tried to join them. She was also fascinated by her little sister, but quickly began to feel superfluous. She was like the fifth wheel on a car for this family. 2 years after Noelle's birth, Lisa had a brother, Jeremy. Here, Lisa's father truly blossomed with happiness. Well, the long-awaited son was born. Heir, pride and support. Now, Lisa became something like a nanny for Noelle, and Sarah didn't care whether her stepdaughter did her homework, had after-school activities, or wanted to go out with friends. No. If the stepmother needed spare time, little Noelle was handed over to Lisa without discussion. And then, when Jeremy grew up, Lisa babysat 2 children. She received no gratitude for her labour. It was taken for granted. The older sister looks after the kids. What's the big deal? But Lisa, she wanted so much to be praised, for her father and Sarah to appreciate what she was doing. But only Noelle and Jeremy were the family favourites. Their father's eyes shone in a special way when he looked at them. Sarah also couldn't hold back a smile when talking to the kids. And Lisa? She was like an extra in her own home. No one was interested in her opinion. No one wanted to listen to her problems. And the girl's wishes and dreams were never considered. Lisa intuitively felt that Sarah set the mood in the house. If Sarah loved her stepdaughter, Lisa's father would treat his daughter with more warmth. But Sarah's heart was unreachable, and soon Lisa gave up these attempts. Time went on. In high school, the girl decided that certainly she would go to college after graduation. She wanted to get a profession sooner, to get on her feet and leave the family where she had become a stranger. Even Noelle and Jeremy, when they grew up, began to treat their older sister the same way as their parents did. She was a second-class person to them. something like a free servant. Lisa took up her studies with determination. It was hard. In recent years, she had no time for lessons at all due to household chores. The former solid good student quickly turned into a weak C student, and now Lisa was diligently catching up, lingering in the school library and poring over textbooks. Here it was calm and quiet. No one could make her clean the kids' room or take them for a walk. In general, Lisa accomplished what she once thought impossible. She improved her grades and passed her exams into the college. The years of study flew by quickly. Lisa returned home after dark, preferring to do homework and prepare for exams in the library. Lisa realized she would be an excellent elementary school teacher, and her practical training in schools confirmed this. She could connect with each little student, even those other teachers found difficult. Her pupils easily grasped new topics. Lisa intuitively knew how to convey information to ensure children understood. The girl couldn't wait to start working. She also longed to move out of her parents' house, become independent, and stop feeling like a stranger in her own home. So, upon receiving her diploma, Lisa packed her things and set out for a new life. Her stepmother probably breathed a sigh of relief. "That's right. Well done." Sarah praised Lisa for the first time. "You're an adult now. There's no need to depend on us anymore. It's time to make your own way in life. But don't count on our financial help. You're grown up. You have to manage on your own. And we're renovating the house, so we can't help you with anything." Lisa nodded, having already realized she was on her own. There was nothing to expect from her family. No one loved her here. No one cared about her. Lisa left home with a light backpack and a small amount of money in her pocket. For a year, she had been saving from her scholarship, which should have been enough to rent the simplest accommodation in the city. The girl managed to rent a room in a hostel. Her first neighbours were migrant workers who didn't speak well, and a family of alcoholics. The walls in the poor dwelling were thin, wallpaper peeled off broken, and the floors creaked mercilessly. The conditions were barely acceptable, but Lisa, surprisingly, still felt happy and free. She no longer had to endure Sarah's nagging or her father's indifference, didn't have to try to please everyone, and didn't feel superfluous and guilty. Lisa hoped she wouldn't stay there long. She would find a job, rent a better apartment, and then a wonderful life would begin. Lisa started job hunting. Her diploma was excellent, and she had glowing recommendations from the school principals, where she had practiced. Lisa was eager to work and teach children, but the girl faced unexpected difficulties. The top-notch school, offering good salaries, required experienced staff. Lisa hadn't worked a day. Some schools were willing to hire her, but the salaries were meagre, especially for someone without experience. "You have to start somewhere," said the headmistress of one of these schools. They were short on elementary school teachers, so she tried her best to interest the young graduate. "Work, gain experience, and then you'll get bonuses. What's your hurry? You still have your whole life ahead of you." Lisa just shook her head. The director was unaware of her situation. Lisa couldn't wait. She needed money. The girl was nearly desperate. She had a clear plan, a clear understanding of how her life would unfold. Now everything was collapsing, shattered by life's realities. Staying in the hostel long term was dangerous, given her neighbours. Money wasn't even enough for food. Lisa needed a much higher salary than what she was offered, so she decided to try an entirely different field. Lisa became a market seller. She was hired by Lena, an aged woman with white hair and a hoarse voice, who owned several market stalls. The job wasn't Lisa's dream, but the girl planned to save money to rent an apartment for a year, and then get a job at a school. Even if the salary was small, it would be fine. The main thing was to be a teacher. She'd have it all later. Lena paid Lisa well, and the girl also received a small percentage of the proceeds. This was how the owner motivated her sellers to work more productively. The work wasn't difficult in principle. The only strain was the financial responsibility. It was also hard at the end of the workday to haul bundles of unsold goods to the warehouse. Incidentally, it was thanks to these very bundles that Lisa met Ryan. That evening, Lisa couldn't find the cart that sales clerks usually used to carry heavy items. It had either broken down or been taken away. She realized she would have to drag the huge cloth bag to the warehouse herself. Lifting it was out of the question, so she put on gloves to protect her palms and dragged the burden along the ground. At first it wasn't too bad, but soon her back and legs began to ache. Spots flickered before her eyes, and there was no one around to help. Lisa was late. The market was already quiet and deserted. She could hardly believe that just a couple of hours ago the place had been bustling with life. And then, "Hey, miss, what are you doing? Why are you carrying such a heavy load?" Lisa turned around. A young man was approaching her. Tall, handsome, with slightly wavy brown hair and laughing green eyes. He wore a simple black t-shirt that accentuated his muscular build, and blue jeans. Everything about him looked incredibly good. Where did he come from? She wondered. Later, Lisa learned that Ryan and his friends had been walking near the market when they spotted her through the fence bars, stubbornly pulling her burden like a determined ant. Ryan didn't like what he saw, a fragile, pretty girl struggling with a heavy bag. He easily jumped over the fence and offered his help. Lisa gratefully accepted, realizing she wouldn't have had enough strength to get the bag to the warehouse. Ryan carried the heavy load as if it were a simple grocery bag. The muscles in his arms tensed visibly. Clearly, the young man was into some kind of sport. Lisa later found out that Ryan went to the gym. "Thank you so much," Lisa smiled at her helper once the bag was in the warehouse. "You're welcome. It's always a pleasure to help a girl, especially one so beautiful," Ryan replied. Lisa felt herself blushing. This compliment from a charming stranger made a strong impression on her. For some reason, she really wanted him to ask her name. As if reading her thoughts, the young man did just that, offering to get acquainted. Lisa felt wrung out like a lemon after a whole day in the heat at the market, topped off by the heavy bag incident. But when Ryan suggested a little walk, she suddenly felt a surge of energy. It was as if she had wings. They wandered through the city streets, talking, laughing, and getting to know each other. It turned out that Ryan had recently graduated from college and now worked as an economist for an air conditioning installation company. The salary, he admitted, wasn't high, not the kind of pay he had dreamed of. But what could he do? Without experience, recent graduates weren't hired anywhere. Lisa understood her new acquaintance's situation all too well, having been in a similar position herself. The difference was that Ryan had his mother's support. He lived with her, and she paid the rent and bought groceries. This allowed Ryan to work for a low wage in his field, gaining experience before moving on to better opportunities. Lisa, on the other hand, had to survive on her own. There was no help from her father and stepmother. Upon learning Lisa's story, Ryan felt even more drawn to her. "Now I want to protect and defend you," he declared. "You know, I really miss that," Lisa replied. They started dating. Ryan began stopping by the market every day after work. He would help Lisa pack up and take her things to the warehouse. Then the young couple would go for a walk, sometimes to the movies, sometimes to a park on the other side of town, or they'd stroll along the embankment holding hands. Ryan occasionally complained about strict bosses, low wages, and his mother not understanding that he had grown up. She still tried to manage him as if he were 12 or 13. Lisa supported her beloved as best she could. The girl was incredibly happy overall. After all, she finally had a man who cared about her. Ryan gave her flowers, took her to cafes, and showed interest in her affairs. It was so unusual and pleasant. Lisa sometimes felt dizzy from the emotions that overwhelmed her. At times, she could hardly believe this was happening to her. Then Ryan moved in with Lisa. By then, she had already rented a nice apartment, a tiny but cozy one-bedroom apartment near the market. The terrible dwellings with dubious neighbours were a thing of the past. It happened imperceptibly and naturally. At first, Ryan stayed overnight. Then gradually the apartment began to fill with his things. A toothbrush, razor, some clothes. And finally, Lisa herself suggested he stay permanently. She loved falling asleep and waking up in Ryan's arms, cooking him breakfast, and feeling his care and love. Why should they be apart when they could live together? As for Ryan, he was glad to move out of his mother's house. "She's been driving me crazy with her demands," he confided to his beloved. From everything Ryan said, it appeared his mother was an imperious woman, accustomed to keeping everything under her control. Lisa felt a little apprehensive about her in advance. Ryan continued working at the air conditioning firm. His duties include making calculations. The work was tedious, not particularly interesting, and didn't require high qualifications. Ryan's salary was 2 times less than Lisa's. She worried he might feel insecure about it and didn't want anything to mar their relationship. But Ryan had a positive outlook on the situation. He assured Lisa that this was just the beginning. "I'll gain experience here, then I'll find something better. With my education, it shouldn't be a problem. It's just that companies are reluctant to hire recent graduates." Lisa agreed with every word of her lover. He was right. She was in the same situation, but she had to work at the market because she lacked family support, unlike Ryan. His mother, whoever she was, helped her son. True, she made many claims against him, but that's what parents do. Lisa wasn't used to that. Meanwhile, Lena, Lisa's employer, called her a fool in love. "Well, look how well your Ryan is doing. He sits in the office from 9 to 5, pushing papers, earning pennies, and doesn't aspire to anything more. First he was on his mother's neck, now he's moved to yours." "That's not true. You've got it all wrong." "Me? Wrong? Of course. I can see right through people, you know." "You're wrong, Lena." Lisa defended their relationship. "Really? Answer me a few questions then. Who pays the rent?" "I do, but who fills the refrigerator with food? Whose money buys the food?" "Mine mostly, but what about him? What does he contribute to your budget? What does Ryan spend his money on?" "He bought me flowers yesterday," Lisa blurted out. "And he ordered us rolls for tonight. He also pays for his own gym." Lena only grinned and shook her head, thoughtfully. Lisa tried not to pay attention to acquaintances, saying Ryan was living at her expense. It seemed so from the outside, but Ryan had a plan to gain experience, and then look for a better paid position. He was still young. He had everything ahead of him. The main thing was that Ryan loved her. He told her that often. He loved her like no one else. It was so nice to feel needed. For the sake of this feeling, Lisa was ready to endure any temporary difficulties. She didn't doubt that the difficulties were temporary. Lena and others simply couldn't appreciate the value of mutual feelings. They hadn't experienced feeling unnecessary and superfluous in their own family as Lisa had, so they couldn't understand how important and valuable it was to be near a loved one. They truly couldn't comprehend it. Ryan often went to his friends' houses at night. Lisa didn't know these guys. Ryan didn't introduce them, but she accepted her lover's lifestyle. "You wouldn't be interested, it's just my guys. We have a male company. Sometimes guys need to get together like this, you know?" Of course, Lisa understood. She liked that her beloved valued friendship. The fact that he had many buddies was good too. It meant Ryan was a pleasant and sociable person. One evening, Ryan came home in a dishevelled state. Lisa knew that after work he had to stop by his mother's house. "She says I'm not self-sufficient and infantile." Ryan shared his worries with his beloved. "She called me spineless. Can you imagine? My own mother said this. She always scolds me. Since childhood I've never been good enough for her. I do everything wrong. She still thinks I'm a child incapable of manly behaviour. You know what? Let's get married." Lisa couldn't believe her ears. Her heart felt as if an icy hand had clenched it. Even her breath caught. "What? What did you say?" "Let's get married," Ryan said more calmly and confidently. "You see, I've been wanting to propose to you for a long time, but I thought I'd pick a better moment to make everything beautiful and romantic. And here, it just came out. So how about it, do you agree?" "Yes, of course I do." Lisa threw herself around Ryan's neck, trying to hold back tears. For her, this proposal was the strongest proof yet of the young man's love for her. Now finally, she would have a real family. They began to prepare for the wedding. It was a pleasant hassle. Although the young couple was financially limited, it was time for Lisa to meet her future mother-in-law, Mrs. Griffiths. The girl was afraid of this meeting. From Ryan's words, it appeared that his mother was an imperious woman, accustomed to keeping everything and everyone under control. How would she perceive a potential daughter-in-law, especially one who was literally an orphan and came from a tiny provincial town? When Mrs. Griffiths invited her son and his bride to dinner, Lisa was so worried. She spent a long time choosing an outfit, wanting to look spectacular, refined, and restrained all at once. Mrs. Griffiths was older than Lisa had thought. Apparently she had given birth to her son at an advanced age. The woman was impeccably polite, but cold, like an English queen. Lisa kept trying to figure out whether her future mother-in-law liked her. Mrs. Griffiths herself almost made her fearful. The woman was already retired, having worked for a long time as a department head at a factory. The managerial position must have left its marks on her. Ryan said his mother had to quit because she was sick, something serious with her heart, but Mrs. Griffiths looked quite healthy. "Perhaps you rushed your decision to get married," Mrs. Griffiths finally spoke up. "Why, Mum?" Ryan snapped angrily. "Perhaps you should stand on your feet more firmly, Ryan. You're not earning enough to support a family. You're not ready." Lisa shivered, goosebumps running down her back. She sat in silence, not knowing how to act. One thing was clear to her. Her lover's mother was clearly against their marriage. Her premonitions had not deceived her. Mrs. Griffiths probably simply didn't like the future daughter-in-law. Too poor, too simple. Ryan argued with his mother, giving her reason after reason why he was already old enough and independent. But Mrs. Griffiths quietly turned the conversation to another topic, and the evening went on as usual. However, Lisa's mood was already spoiled. It was clear her mother-in-law didn't approve of her and had just made it known. The main thing, of course, was that Ryan loved her, but still, Lisa wanted his mother to accept her too. Later that evening at home, Lisa and Ryan discussed the meeting with his mother. Ryan was furious. "How can she not realize that I'm an adult and free to live my own life?" He fumed. The young couple decided not to organize a big wedding party, just signing the papers and then dining together at a restaurant, because they didn't have enough money for a celebration. Ryan earned not much, and Lisa's salary went to rent and groceries. Mrs. Griffiths couldn't or wouldn't help the young people, saying her savings went to medical treatment. Lisa's father and Sarah immediately said they weren't helping financially either, having just renovated their new apartment. But Lisa wasn't bothered by all this. The banquet, the white dress, the decorated cars. The main thing was having her loved one near. After the wedding, there were little changes in their domestic life, but now Lisa proudly wore a wedding ring on her finger and got used to her new, unusual surname. The young couple rarely visited Mrs. Griffiths. Ryan sometimes went to his mother's house after work to pick up his things and socialize. Occasionally, she invited the newlyweds to family dinners. The woman no longer expressed dissatisfaction with her son's marriage, but for Lisa, that first time was enough. On visits to her mother-in-law's house, she felt improper. Mrs. Griffiths maintained her usual manner, cold, reserved, impeccably polite, like a prim dowager countess. She didn't meddle in the young couple's affairs, but talked about unrelated subjects. During these family evenings, the atmosphere at the table was a little forced. Lisa always wanted their gatherings to end quickly, so she could go home. After a while, Ryan brought up the topic of children. "We've been married almost 6 months, he said one day at dinner. Maybe we should start thinking about heirs. It's about time." "You want a baby?" Lisa clarified, catching her breath. She had dreamed of a baby herself, but there were so many complications. "Why not? I've been dreaming of a son for a long time. We'd go out together, play soccer. I'll take him camping, like friend Ben does with his son. It would be really cool." "But what about... We need a lot of money for a child, and we..." Lisa waved her hands. She could have reminded Ryan about their utility debts and living paycheck to paycheck, about their small apartment needing repairs, and the fact that it wasn't even theirs, just rented, about the ever-rising rent and many other issues. But why? Ryan was aware of the situation. "Yes, I understand," her husband agreed. "We're not in the best position now, but it's only temporary. You know, I have a good education. I can easily get a better job." He then talked at length about how children are a powerful motivator, that he would move mountains for a child. It sounded very convincing. Besides, Lisa had wanted a baby for a long time. Many of her friends already had daughters and sons. Cute, chubby babies that made her heart ache just looking at them. In the end, Lisa decided it was indeed time. Financial difficulties were surmountable. She had her reliable and loving Ryan beside her. He promised to do everything for their family. So why not? Soon after, Lisa realized she was pregnant. She was surprised and scared, thinking it wouldn't happen so quickly. But her anxiety soon gave way to boundless happiness. Ryan looked happy too, now taking even better care of his wife. He bought lots of fruit, made sure she didn't carry heavy things, and went to the market every evening before closing time to haul goods to the warehouse. Lisa had to leave her job well before her maternity leave due to pregnancy complications. The doctor insisted on a more relaxed regimen, and Lisa's work as a vendor at the market was now contraindicated. She had to stay outside all day in all weather, reaching for high-hanging items and sometimes moving heavy boxes. The doctor warned that this could lead to premature labour. Fortunately, Lisa had managed to save a small sum for a rainy day, because now, without her salary, the family was in a tight spot. Ryan was still working for pennies, looking for a more lucrative job, but nothing had worked out so far. Some employers demand work and responsibility without measure. Others offer training without paying, Ryan grumbled, returning from another interview. However, despite their financial difficulties, Ryan didn't hesitate to meet with friends, which usually resulted in significant expenses. In fact, he spent his meagre salary on outings with his buddies, and perhaps not only with them. Lisa started suspecting there were girls in that company, as she heard female voices when she called her husband. Ryan, who had promised to do anything for their child, was clearly struggling. The sight of Lisa made him sad. Pregnancy didn't beautify her. Lisa had pimples on her forehead, swelling, and her belly was enormous. She couldn't even look at herself in the mirror, and it was upsetting to hear Ryan's jokes about her appearance. Lisa craved support and attention during this difficult period, but she felt alone again. Ryan, her favourite person, her husband, gradually distanced himself, becoming almost a stranger. It was terrifying. Mrs. Griffiths was also fully occupied with her own health. She frequently visited hospitals and sanatoriums, leaving little time for her grandchildren. And one day Ryan even bitterly relayed something she had said to him. "When two children decide to have a child, it's unlikely something good will come of it." The hurtful words stabbed Lisa in the heart. It became clear that Ryan's mother hadn't fully accepted her son's marriage. This realization was painful and saddening for Lisa. Then Celeste was born, a little premature, but not critically so. Small, fragile and vocal. When Lisa held her daughter for the first time, all her worries and sorrows vanished. She had never felt such joy before. Little Celeste gazed at her mother, as if studying her face, getting acquainted with her closest person. Lisa could hardly breathe from the overwhelming emotions. She had never felt such love for anyone before. Ryan had hoped for a son, of course, but he was excited about having a daughter too. "I'll teach her to play soccer anyway," he declared to Lisa, taking little Celeste from her arms. Ryan arranged a beautiful discharge from the maternity hospital. Balloons, flowers, music. Mrs. Griffiths also came, bringing a large bag of gifts for both the newborn and Lisa. It was pleasant and touching. Mrs. Griffiths glowed with happiness, looking at her little daughter, showing strong emotions for the first time. Lisa enjoyed seeing this. Ryan and his mother shared her delight and loved Celeste very much too. Lisa's father and stepmother, however, never came. They were too busy with work and their own children. Lisa wasn't surprised, but it still hurt, although her father and stepmother had long been almost strangers to her. Every day life stretched on, filled with worries about the baby, sleepless nights and concerns for the little girl. Celeste was fussy. Either her tummy hurt or something else bothered her. She even cried and slept little. It was a real test for Lisa, but she tried to bear it steadfastly. Ryan realized this wasn't how he had imagined fatherhood. Where had his enthusiasm for the child gone? His daughter's crying annoyed rather than alarmed him. He often retreated to the living room to sleep, closing doors and even using earplugs to block out the noise. "I have to work in the morning. I'm earning money. Please keep in mind that," he scolded Lisa indignantly. "So you, calm her down. I need to get some sleep." Lisa didn't argue or take offense. On the contrary, she felt guilty that she couldn't provide peace at home and felt like a bad mother. She had so many worries at once. Her daughter needed constant changing diaper, hourly feeding, trips to the clinic, development and treatment. Then there were the daily walks. Celeste slept peacefully only outdoors. Sometimes Mrs. Griffiths visited, always bringing gifts. She smiled at her granddaughter, spoke to her in an affectionate voice, and the little girl immediately calmed down. In these moments, Lisa could catch her breath. Despite her usual coldness and primness, Mrs. Griffiths was evidently hot towards her granddaughter. Celeste, sensing this, smiled at her grandmother and stretched her little arms towards her. Mrs. Griffiths now helped the young family, financially a little, buying Celeste food, clothes and medicines, and Lisa was grateful to her for that help. Ryan's mother seemed to adore her granddaughter, but remained cold towards the daughter-in-law. She probably couldn't accept that her son had chosen not a proper wife. As for Ryan, who had vowed to move mountains for the sake of the child, he wasn't eager to fulfill his promises. He still worked at the same job, refused to consider part-time work, and never went to another interview. "I'm tired," he explained to Lisa. "I'm exhausted. The baby is always screaming. I can't relax at home. How can I do anything in this state?" Ryan increasingly stayed out overnight, disappearing with his friends from Friday night to Sunday morning. Bars, parties. Meanwhile, Lisa struggled alone with their restless child. She often lacked time to cook or clean, which angered Ryan further. "The house is always dirty, there's nothing to eat, and sausages and macaroni are boring. It's hard for me to keep up with everything. Celeste's cranky, she's teething, and—" How do other women manage? They all have kids, but their houses are clean, and food is cooked. And you? You're at home all day. Is it so difficult to keep order? These words from her husband made Lisa feel even more worthless and guilty. She tried her best, but still couldn't manage everything. One day, Ryan announced he wanted to live separately. "They're putting my mother in the hospital again in the capital. She'll be gone for almost a month. I'll stay in her apartment." "A whole month?" "Yes, I need to rest. I work hard from morning till night, and then there's no peace at home." Ryan packed his things and moved out. Lisa instinctively realized this was the end. She immediately suspected another woman. Her suspicion proved true. Ryan had met a woman at a club. Jian was 10 years older, divorced, wealthy, and independent. She had 2 children from her ex-husband, a successful businessman. Jian worked as a chief accountant at an IT firm, earning a substantial salary. She could afford many luxuries, including a young, handsome lover. Ryan won her over with his looks and charisma. It wasn't surprising. He still resembled a heartthrob from a TV series. Ryan offered Jian youth, beauty and passion. She offered him money. He invited his new acquaintance to his mother's apartment, as Jian didn't want him to live at her place with her children. Their relationship developed rapidly. Lisa learned about her husband's expensive vacation from his social media posts. Ryan shared a selfie on a luxurious beach, showing off his bronze tan and designer shirt. To say Lisa was surprised would be an understatement. She didn't know about Jian then. Her husband wouldn't answer his phone. When Ryan returned, he came home tanned, radiant and seemingly a stranger. He explained the situation to his wife. "You see, it's the first time in my life I've fallen in love like this. It happens. You mustn't hold me back. We're getting a divorce." "What about me? What about Celeste?" Lisa was desperate. She fanatically worried how she would manage. Their daughter was barely a year old, too young and sickly for daycare. Lisa couldn't work or expect any help. How would she pay rent or buy groceries? Ryan's salary, though small, had helped them stay afloat. Lisa's savings were long gone, and she had hoped things would improve for them. She understood they were going through a difficult period, financial struggles, a small child, but these were just ordinary domestic challenges. It would pass. Everything would be fine. At least, that's what she had believed. Lisa had dreamed that when Celeste grew a little older, the 3 of them would explore the city together, sit in cafes and visit amusement parks. Now what? She was alone again, but this time with a baby in her arms. "I love her. I'm just blown away by her," Ryan continued, frankly, seemingly oblivious to the pain his words caused his wife. "Besides, spouses aren't each other's property, are they? And Celeste, I won't stop being her father. I'm going to help you." Lisa shook her head. She had serious doubts about that. Even as her husband, Ryan hadn't contributed much to the family. Now, with a new woman, it wasn't worth hoping for anything. Ryan packed his bags and left, moving in with Jian. He was probably truly happy with her. His social media pages occasionally featured photos and videos from parties and resorts. Ryan seemed to fit perfectly into that lifestyle. As for Lisa, she was left alone with numerous problems. First, she needed to buy stuff for Celeste. Second, the rent apartment deadline was approaching. Help came from an unexpected source. One morning, Mrs. Griffiths visited her apartment. It was unusual. Her mother-in-law had never visited them before. It was always Lisa and Ryan who went to see her. She looked pale and a bit confused. Lisa knew from Ryan that Mrs. McGriffiths had recently undergone another heart operation. She probably hadn't fully recovered yet. "As I thought, that's what happened." The woman shook her head sadly. "Do you know, I told Ryan it was too early for him to get married, let alone have children. I didn't know if he'd ever grow up to handle such responsibility. In fact, I doubt it very much." Lisa lowered her eyes. Has my mother-in-law come to reproach her? She thought. Ryan is an immature man, the woman continued. All he wants to do is hanging out and party. He married you to prove to me that he's an adult and independent. I think that's why Ryan wanted a child too. No, we were in love, and... I know better, Mrs. Griffith said firmly. Then Celeste, who had been asleep, approached the woman. Seeing her grandmother, the little girl smiled and reached out her arms. Mrs. Griffith's face softened. Next to Celeste, she bore no resemblance to a prim countess. Mrs. Griffiths picked up the girl and sat her on her lap, stroking Celeste's hair. In fact, that's why I've come. You and Celeste clearly need help, am I right? Lisa nodded. There was no point in denying it. She couldn't handle the situation herself. I know you can't count on your parents. Ryan told me your story, It's sad. There's no other way to put it. But I was also an outsider in my own family, so I understand what you're going through." "Really?" Lisa marvelled. "Indeed, I even had a stepmother and 2 stepsisters, just like in a Cinderella fairy tale. And I also found myself alone with a baby in my arms one day, just like you. The difference is that I was already in management position at the time. I lived in my own apartment and was older and more established, but still, you see how much we have in common." Lisa looked at her mother-in-law as if seeing her for the first time. It dawned on her that she knew nothing about this woman at all. "In short," Mrs. Griffiths concluded decisively, "you and Celeste are moving in with me for now, until you get on your feet." Lisa stood thunderstruck. Her mother-in-law, the woman who had always kept her distance, with whom they had barely spoken all this time, and now, suddenly this. Mrs. Griffiths was offering help. And what kind of help? This was a gift from fate. And so Lisa's life began anew, an entirely different life. She found comfort and calm at Mrs. Griffiths. With her mother-in-law, no, they never became close, but they were at least pleasant neighbours. Lisa and Celeste were given a separate room, the largest and brightest. Mrs. Griffiths took her granddaughter for walks, giving Lisa a chance to rest and attend to her own affairs. However, the older woman had to visit the hospital often, as her health was deteriorating. Lisa and Celeste would go to visit her. Ryan has been wrong. Yes, his mother wasn't emotional, affectionate or talkative, but she was reliable and decent, which was far more than important. The only downside for Lisa was the shortage of money. Ryan lived with his new girlfriend in luxury, as evidenced by photos on his social media. Officially unemployed after quitting his previous job, he paid Lisa a fixed amount in alimony. It was a pittance, barely enough for bread and milk. Meanwhile, Ryan drove expensive cars, wore designer clothes, and visited the world's most famous resorts. Mrs. Griffiths was ashamed of her son's behaviour, but could still see it. "What can you do? It's in his genes," the mother-in-law would sometimes lament. "His father was the same, flitting through life like a moth, shirking responsibility. He wasn't interested in Ryan, and he disappeared as soon as he learned of my pregnancy. But frankly speaking, I never counted on him. I knew what kind of a man he was." Soon, Lisa started seeking for a part-time work. But who would hire her with a small child? Celeste wasn't even old enough for kindergarten yet. A solution came from Mrs. Griffiths' neighbour, who was aware of the family's situation. "My granddaughter started 1st grade this year," she told Lisa during a walk in the yard with her daughter. "So the question arose, who would take her to school and pick her up? My son and daughter-in-law work. We live far from them. So we started looking for a nanny. They found a young nanny on a maternity leave, and now she's looking after our Molly. For good money, by the way. And you're happy to pay her. She's good, decent woman. It's not easy to find a reliable nanny. I suppose you could do the same." "Of course I could." Lisa's face lit up. How had she not thought of that herself? "Listen, when you write your resume and place an ad, be sure to mention your teaching background. It's a huge advantage for you." That same evening, Lisa posted ads on several platforms. The calls came in immediately. At first, Lisa thought it would be easy to start this job, but in reality, everything turned out to be more complicated. Sometimes Lisa wasn't satisfied with the conditions. Other times, the employers didn't like something. For instance, not everyone was willing to hire a nanny who came with her own baby, and Lisa couldn't work any other way. Then one day, there was a call from an unknown number. Almost without hope, Lisa answered the phone. "Yes," said a woman's voice on the other end. "I'm calling about the nanny ad." The conversation was long and thorough. A nanny was needed for a 4-year-old boy named Cody, an unusual boy. He had no diagnosis, but he was very withdrawn. He became that way right after his mother died. He was only 1.5 years old then, but he still felt and understood everything. The once smiling, outgoing toddler had turned into an indifferent, emotionless little boy. The best doctors had tried to help Cody. But whatever they did, nothing changed. The child refused to communicate with anyone outside a limited circle of people. "He only communicates with his father, that's all," said Mrs. Leaf, the au pair to whom Cody was like a grandson. She was the one who had called looking for a nanny. "The boy doesn't seem to notice other people. We're looking for someone who can connect with him. Many nannies have tried to befriend Cody, but he rejects them all and refuses to communicate. He needs to go for walks and socialize. School isn't far off. We're desperate." "I'd love to meet Cody," Lisa replied, her curiosity piqued. It felt like a challenge, a puzzle to solve, and Lisa was eager to succeed. "But I'm not alone. I have a 1-year-old daughter." "That's not a problem," Mrs. Leaf assured her. "If you're the right fit, it doesn't matter, believe me." Soon, Lisa found herself standing on the porch of the enormous mansion. It was like another world, a well-tended garden, gravelled paths, a small fountain by the gate. Everything was quiet and calm. Lisa felt a little nervous. Mrs. Leaf opened the door, smiling when she saw the little girl in the potential nanny's arms. "What a lovely little girl," the au pair said, ushering them inside. "I sincerely hope you'll stay with us." In the spacious living room, a boy sat on a soft sofa. He was small and thin, with blonde hair and dark, intelligent eyes that looked sorrowful. "This is our Cody," Mrs. Leaf said, stroking the boy's head. "Say hello." The child didn't answer but looked at Lisa, who smiled at him sincerely. Her heart ached with pity for the little one. Suddenly, Cody jumped off the couch, approached the potential nanny, and stroked Celeste's chubby hand. The little girl winced in surprise, and the boy smiled. It seemed like such a small thing. But Mrs. Leaf clutched at her heart, overwhelmed with emotion. "This is a miracle. I don't remember him smiling at anyone, except his father sometimes. You must be the right one for us." And so Lisa became a nanny. Mrs. Griffiths was glad that her daughter-in-law had found a job. "Good girl, Lisa. Well done. Now you won't be lost, even if something happens to me." "Don't think about bad things," Lisa pleaded. She didn't want to imagine anything terrible happening to Ryan's mother. She hoped the treatment would help. Though there was no warmth between them, Mrs. Griffiths, Lisa and Celeste were somehow united, alone against the world, sticking together. Besides, it was only her mother-in-law who had helped Lisa in a difficult situation. Lisa couldn't help but appreciate that. Every morning, a car picked up Lisa and Celeste, and the chauffeur took them to Cody. The boy waited impatiently for the nanny. She knew many fun games, and, most importantly, she loved him. The other nannies had been cold-eyed with fake smiles. Cody couldn't stand them, but Lisa was different. Cody took touching care of little Celeste, ensuring she didn't fall and playing ball with her. The girl laughed. Lisa and Cody exchanged smiles. The boy thawed before her eyes. Lisa didn't realize how she differed from the nannies who had tried before. Some even had psychology degrees, but Cody had ignored them, refusing to be alone with them. With Lisa, he walked in the park, played, read, and learned to write. Lisa didn't make any special efforts. Perhaps it was Celeste's presence, too. Cody behaved like a loving, caring older brother. It was sweet and funny. Mrs. Leaf couldn't be happier with her favourite. She also became very attached to Celeste, giving her nice gifts and calling her favourite girl. Soon, the four of them were almost like one family. Warm and kind relationships formed between them. For a long time, Lisa didn't see the owner of the house, the boy's father. He owned a car dealership and spent almost all his time at the main office. He came home late, after Lisa and Celeste had left. One day, when Lisa arrived at Cody's house in the morning as usual, she saw him. She had imagined him differently, sturdy, tall, serious, frowning, with a severe crease between his eyebrows. But before her stood a young man, thin, blue-eyed and smiling. Somehow, her employer didn't evoke any particular awe, fear, or excitement. "Hello," he greeted Lisa. "At last, I get to greet the person who worked this miracle with my son. Cody, now communicates with people, smiles and talks a lot, and how much he has already learned. I've wanted to thank you for a long time." Lisa smiled back, pleased with the man's words and happy for Cody. Several years had passed. Lisa quietly walked out of the bedroom of her youngest daughter, Holly, her child with Daniel. The grown Celeste and Cody were still awake, watching cartoons with their father in the living room. Daniel made no distinction between his father and Celeste. He loved them all equally and tried to pay attention to all of them, despite his busy work schedule. It all came together quickly. Lisa and Daniel met, talked to each other, and immediately realized they were made for each other, like in a fairy tale. Despite their differences in age, financial situation, and overall life experiences, both felt an instant kinship of souls. It was indescribable. At first, Lisa tried to keep her distance. She knew how it might appear, a poor woman with a child pursuing a wealthy man. She didn't want to be perceived that way, especially by Daniel. However, Daniel managed to help Lisa overcome this barrier, and the stereotype suddenly became unimportant to her. What mattered were Daniel, Cody, Celeste, and their feelings. Her mother-in-law was genuinely happy for her daughter-in-law. Mrs. Griffiths' health was deteriorating, and she feared that soon Lisa and Celeste would be alone. Now, with a responsible person beside her daughter-in-law and granddaughter, the old woman's heart was at ease. Daniel also helped Mrs. Griffiths by sending her for treatment at an expensive clinic. The doctors prescribed therapy and assured her she would live for many more years, long enough to see her grandchildren marry. Lisa was deeply grateful to her husband for this. Mrs. Griffiths often visited the young family, or Lisa and her children would visit her. The elderly woman blossomed around the kids, enjoying long conversations with the sensible Cody, or playing dolls with Celeste. She never tired of their company. Then Holly was born, bringing even more happiness to the family. Cody, now an experienced older brother, became Lisa's best helper, rocking the stroller, ironing clothes and feeding the little sister. After divorce, Ryan lived his own vibrant life, still posting picturesque photos on social media and changing his status to increasingly grandiose claims. Recently, he called Lisa out of the blue. Ryan knew nothing about the changes in her life because he hadn't communicated with his mother in a long time. Whenever she heard his voice, she would start reprimanding him for betraying the family. Eventually, Ryan stopped calling her altogether. What was the point? No one likes to hear such things. Now he suddenly reappeared, saying he wanted to meet, talk, and find out how his daughter was doing. The daughter to whom, by the way, he had been paying minimal child support all these years. Lisa smiled as she listened to her former spouse. She knew Ryan well and understood his motives. Ryan liked to show off and make an impression. He probably expected to find his ex-wife miserable with a child in her arms. When he presented himself as handsome and successful, perhaps he had had enough of his usual thrills and came seeking a new dose of surprise and admiration. Well, the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning promised to be interesting. Ryan and Lisa agreed to meet at a cafe, the very place where they used to have breakfast when they thought they were made for each other. Lisa purposely arrived a little late. As she parked, she saw Ryan through the cafe's glass wall, sitting at a table in full dress. Lisa grinned. Yes, hubby hasn't lost his flair for dramatics. Ryan glanced at Lisa's car, admiring it without seeing the driver. Just then, Lisa stepped out onto the sidewalk with flair. Ryan's face registered surprise, much to her satisfaction. They didn't talk for long. There was nothing to discuss. Celeste had no interest in Ryan, and as it turned out, Ryan had no desire to see his daughter. It was for the best. Moreover, the girl already had a father, a real parent, who had raised her. Of course, Ryan was taken aback by Lisa's story. He had obviously imagined their meeting differently, and was visibly disappointed. He failed to produce the desired effect on his ex-wife, and Ryan himself didn't come across well in this encounter. Lisa left the cafe with a light heart and a smile on her lips. At home, her children and beloved husband awaited her. Daniel had taken the day off work to spend time with his family. They planned to visit a water park and then see Mrs. Griffiths, who had been inviting them over and promised to make pancakes. Cody and Celeste adored them.